Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. Time for a little vlog to keep you up to date as to what's going on. A lot of people don't watch these and then complain that they have no idea where I am. That's your fault! I try to give you this information. But if you're listening to this, I guess you're not part of the problem. Anyway, this is going up because I am leaving for LA on a jet plane. I'm probably already in the sky, as much as I despise the very notion of doing that. I hate flying, if you didn't know. I despise it. I hate it. Hate it, hate it. But unfortunately, the US is a little bit too big to drive around, so it's not like there's much of a choice. I'm headed over to the West Coast from Monday to Friday this week, that being the 5th to the 9th of October. There is a reason that I'm going there. I can't really talk about it just yet, but it's a pretty cool collaboration, and it will hopefully result in some pretty cool content as well. Not to mention the fact that I'm being well compensated for it, which, to be fair, is what you need to get me on a plane in the first place. As people have found out when they said, hey, do you want to come to this? No, I don't, because it involves flying. No, I would rather sit at home. I'm much less miserable there. Anyway, while I'm there, I will also be spending a bit of time with Jesse Dodger and the LA folks from Polaris. So we will be doing, at least this is the plan anyway, a live podcast from Jesse's offices, and that's going to be happening at the usual time on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, which would be 12 noon Pacific, or 8 in the United Kingdom, 9 in Europe. Simple as that. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work out. The last time we've done live podcasts, they've generally been a very different format, let me put it that way, to what we're used to. But we'll give it a shot and see how it works out, so there will be a show. And of course, if you don't catch that live, the plan would be to put it up on Thursday as per usual. I don't really want to promise any other content from LA because I don't know exactly what's going to be happening there. There may be spontaneous content, there may not be spontaneous content, but I don't want to promise that. Okay, so upcoming stuff. Another thing I don't really want to promise right now is participation in the upcoming Blood Bowl 2 League that Krendor is organizing. We started organizing this a couple of months back, and initially I said, yeah, put me down for it. Obviously, I'm kind of enthusiastic about that. And then the game came out, and I played some of it, and I like it just as much as the original, with the exception, of course, of the fact that the UI is a lot better than the original, which is nice. But at the moment, I've got a couple of issues. One, I simply don't have time to practice it. I mean, watching what Strippin and Krendor and some of the others have been doing, clocking up 70, 80 hours before the league even begins, makes me think that our matches won't be competitive and they're just going to annoy me. Blood Bowl is a really, really stressful game. Really, really stressful. I mean, you've seen the rage in the previous tournaments that we've done. And I don't know if I'm going to enjoy myself, because I feel like I've got to get on their level, and I know I can't because I don't have the time. But more important than my own blood pressure at the moment is the fact that I'm doing a lot of work with Polaris on the Civil War stuff behind the scenes. More so than I thought I would have to, let me put it that way. And as a result, that's taking up a lot of my time to try and make sure everything goes smoothly. And of course, I'm heading up our team and trying to organize practice sessions, and getting everybody in the same place at the same time is far trickier than you might possibly imagine. And that's eating up a ton of my time, and I'm still trying to do 2 videos a day, which I am frequently not managing to pull off. And I've got streaming to do, because I would like to stream some more StarCraft, and I've got the StarCraft team, and I also try and have a home life. Try. Emphasis on the word try. All of these things are sort of pushing me to the point of thinking I have to drop a few things to not burn the hell out. And I think one of those things might end up being the Blood Bowl tournament. I've ran that event before. I know how much time it takes when it comes to editing, when it comes to recording, the number of problems that can occur, as well as, of course, the problem of mismatched skill levels and all that sort of thing. And it just seems to me like I might want to give this one a miss. I'm still thinking about it. I'll make my decision by the end of the week. While I'm in LA, I'll have a few thoughts about it, and we'll see whether or not I can figure it out. I didn't even want to really put it out in the same format that we did the previous ones in. The first event that we did, the games were far too long, and then the second event, the turns were way too short. So while the videos were a lot more watchable, they were still really messy. And I think like the better way to do it is to edit those videos pretty heavily. And I don't think I'm going to have the time to do that, because those matches are going to be an hour long or more. And for those who don't know, I do the vast majority of the editing on this channel. Some people got the impression that Chris does a lot of it. That's not really true. He edits when I come up with, like, a video essay, for instance. Like, the Yet Another Games as Art thing, the Thematic Mechanical Abstraction video, the I will now talk about how games get featured on my channel for just over 45 minutes. God, that's a clumsy title, but it seemed to work anyway. Those videos are edited by Chris. What I do is I will record the video, I'll then write him an outline with some directions, like, here, I would like to see this sort of footage, or maybe you want to put this here, and then he edits the rest. Outside of that, and content patch, when it happens, everything else is edited by me exclusively. And the reason for that is, it's too impractical to send large pieces of footage over the internet to be edited when you're trying to keep on a regular schedule. It makes much more sense for me to do the editing. Because, I mean, after every video, I'm sitting on untold gigabytes worth of footage. You know, even if I look at something I recorded yesterday, the footage for Cute Things Dying Violently, which is a really, really simple game, I've got 75 gigs of footage for that game alone. Regicide is more like 300 gigs of footage. I mean, I can't say that. Obviously, I could encode it, but then you've got to encode it again, and if you do that, then that's going to cause quality degradation. You get the idea, you know? So I would have to edit that. I just don't know if I've got the time. I don't know if I can commit the time, and I don't want to disappoint people and hold up the whole league. So I'm thinking about it, and I will let you know, but please try to minimize your disappointment if I decide not to do it, because I think it might be irresponsible for me to commit to that at the moment. Okay, moving on. So I've had a good amount of time to look at the 15 minutes of game format, plus, you know, the views and the analytics and all that sort of thing, as well as read some feedback. So for the most part, I think that the format is working out fairly well. I never expected it to be as big as WTF is, and frankly, it shouldn't be, because it's a much shorter format. It takes a lot less work to do. And the idea was to make sure that I could just cover more stuff, because I felt like I was drowning, and I still kind of do, when it comes to the amount of content that I'm putting out versus the amount of review copies and games that are coming out on Steam. It's insane. How one person is supposed to keep up with that, I will never know, and nobody really is. So there's so many games getting lost in the shuffle, and quite a few of them deserve to get a bit of exposure. Not all of them. Now, if I go back and look through the 15 minutes of game that I've done up to this point, there's a couple of games that I'm really glad I covered. Freedom Planet is a prime example of that. I'm glad I covered Rack and Ruin. I'm glad that I covered Rampage Nights, because that was kind of great. And I'm also glad that I had a look at Raiden 4 Overkill and all that sort of thing. But of course, there are just as many games that really weren't worthy of the time. But the thing is that if we just do a 15 minutes of game video on something that isn't really worthy of the time, that's not really a big loss. One of the big complaints that I've had over the past few years about WTF is when I did a WTFS video on something that people didn't think was worthy of it. Now, for the longest time, I've sort of pushed back against that idea, and there's a number of reasons. One is practicality. Sometimes you just have to get a video out that day. It's either that or nothing. I think that's the situation that people don't seem to understand, is that it's not a mutually exclusive situation. So one game gets covered in WTF means that another game won't. That's not how it works. The reality of it is that those videos do really well, and I need content out on a daily basis to make sure that people keep coming back to the channel. And sometimes that means hitting a game which is simpler. Sometimes it means hitting a game which I know I can cover in a day, as opposed to like Mad Max, which took me over 2 weeks. Outside of all the other stuff, obviously I wasn't playing it for 2 weeks, but over the course of 2 weeks, I then played it enough to get the hang of it. A game like that will take some time, whereas a game like, say, Galicide or Ollie Ollie 2, I can definitely do that in a day. Then there are games like Metal Gear Solid 5 that I just don't think I can do at all, because the amount of digging into that game to even get a decent impression of it is crazy. I mean, it's a huge amount of work. Traditional games websites might have more than one person to work on games. In fact, they do. You know, they have a large staff. So they can say to this guy, you're working on MGS5 for a week, and it won't really matter, because that guy goes and does that only, and everybody else is working on other things. For me, it's me, and that's it. So I have to try and ration out my time in a way that makes sense from a business standpoint, try and cover as many games as possible, and also make sure we get content on the channel. However, the point of view that I had about it not really being a zero-sum game, I think, is firmly lodged in the way that Steam used to be a few years ago, where there were a lot fewer releases, and it was a lot easier to prioritize stuff that mattered versus stuff that didn't. And if I covered a game that wasn't very good one day, it didn't really matter, because I could easily just cover a good one the day after. Now it's a case of, I cover one game, and then the day after I wake up and there's 12 more on the front page. And that's just under popular releases. It's just like, what am I supposed to do here? How am I supposed to keep up with it? So the reason that 15 minutes of game was devised was as a way to try and keep up with it, and it means that I'm starting to move WTF away from just covering whatever I can get my hands on versus starting to cover things that matter for a reason. If you watched my video about the reasons why I cover games on my channel, which came out in the last couple of weeks, I think you'll realize as to why each of these games was covered. And it's a similar situation now, you know? Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time, why'd I cover that? Probably because right now, it's my game of the year. It's so good in terms of a co-op title, and I really wanted to cover it. Might and Magic Hero 7, I'm a big fan of the series, and Warhammer 40k Regicide, well, I cover almost every 40k game because I'm big into Warhammer, so it makes sense. And then if I look at my 15 minutes of game stuff, then I'm covering stuff that maybe isn't as important, like Putrefaction, and Timberman, and Raiden 4 Overkill, Super Static, and so on and so forth. And I think the relationship now between those two series is really good, assuming that I can keep them both coming out at regular intervals. It doesn't matter so much if people turn around and complain that a 15 minutes of game is about a game they don't care about. Because it's a short video, I don't really mind if you tune out in the first few minutes. It's not really a big deal, you know? You sampled the game, you didn't care for it, and you left the video. That's fine. I hope to be able to make it entertaining enough to actually keep you stuck in there the entire time, but I don't really mind if you leave. I don't really mind if it's a game that maybe isn't that great, if it's a game that really doesn't necessarily deserve a lot of attention, because that format is very quick and easy. The fact that it gets less views than WTF is a good thing. It deserves to get less views than WTF is. It's not as good a format. It's not as detailed a format. There's not as much work and effort put into it. So, of course, it should be less popular. I'd actually be upset if it was more popular. It's like, wow, this thing I made in like 20 minutes is getting more views than this thing that I spent 3 days on? Yeah, that kind of sucks. It's the same attitude that I have when the videos that I make over on Jenna's channel about those food boxes get more views than like a video essay that I just put together that I was really proud of. But I guess you shouldn't be completely metrics orientated when it comes to your videos. It comes down to what do you think was good? You know, what did you personally believe in as a creator? I'm still very proud of quite a lot of these videos that maybe don't get as many views, so I don't really mind that not everybody else was into it. Anyway, I think the biggest complaint that I have with 15 minutes, which I think some people share at the moment, is that sometimes I'm just not that interesting in that format, because I'm not as prepared, I'm not as experienced when it comes to, like, what's basically a blind let's play with a focus on critique. When I go into WTF these days, I'm fully prepared to talk about the various aspects of the game that have bothered me up to that point. And of course, there is the reactionary elements when I stumble across something new when I'm doing the WTF which I think makes it nice and spicy. But outside of that, yeah, I'm not as good at it. I'm not as good at 15 minutes of game as I am at WTF I don't notice as many things. I make more mistakes because it is a blind format. I forget certain aspects of the game while I'm doing it. I can improve on that, I think. You know, I think with more practice, I can be better at it. I think it serves as a nice sort of secondary format, not the primary focus of the channel, but a means to be able to look at more games and sometimes find something that's really, really cool. You know, it's more of a little investigation. And honestly, I would like to do one every day. I think that's good. It used to be the case that I had a daily format, and that was Content Patch, but it gradually got to the point where finding news for it that was actually interesting on a daily basis was becoming increasingly difficult. So we decided to just put that out when there was something really important and interesting to talk about. And honestly, a lot of it turned into kind of video essay stuff. You know, we could have done Content Patch on the Deus Ex thing, but the weird thing is that if we'd done that as a Content Patch, it probably would have got far less views. It's a really annoying part of that format. Is like, Content Patch is a good show, I think. You know, I don't really have too many issues with it. But when there's something really big, it often makes more sense to just commit an entire video to it, and it often gets more views that way. So it's almost a disservice to put that sort of story in a Content Patch. But then the stuff that would otherwise go in a Content Patch maybe isn't important enough to even talk about. There's the problem that I found myself with, I think, with that particular format. I have to rethink that. There's a lot of things I have to rethink. There are parts of the channel which certainly could be improved. There are parts of the channel which could be pruned and redesigned. Then there are parts of the channel that work just fine but need more videos, i.e. like WTF is. There's a lot to do. You know, I hope to eventually be able to really crack on with the WTF is stuff, because I think that's what the majority of people come for. That's clearly what the analytics show. So doing those, doing the more specialized video essays, throwing in a bit of Hearthstone every now and again. That's one thing I'm not playing a lot of right now, by the way. For some reason, this expansion has not quite enthralled me the way that GVG did. I don't know what it is. Like, trying to find interesting new concepts using the new cards from the expansion is increasingly difficult. It's got to the point where I think the best way to do it would be to go back to some of my old gimmicks and use the new cards to improve them and make them more thematic. I think maybe that's the way to go. Because coming up with brand new gimmicks at the moment is really difficult. It's like, can you make a deck about jousting? No, you can't, because there's not enough jousting cards. As simple as that. You just can't do it. What about Inspire? Well, the really thematic Inspire gimmick is with the Mage. It seems to be the most well fleshed out. It's got the most cards that interact with the hero power. I look at other classes and I come to the conclusion that you could, of course, put a lot of Inspire stuff in there, but I don't think you can theme an entire deck around it, because there just aren't enough viable cards that make sense. And then there are things that the Grand Tournament hints at, but doesn't implement with anywhere near enough gusto, and doesn't have enough actual cards related to that particular gimmick to really work. I was thinking about, hey, could we do a taunt-orientated warrior, thanks to the implementation of Bolster and Sparring Partner? And the answer is, no. Not right now, anyway, not unless you wanted to lose everything, because there just aren't enough good taunts, and Bolster on its own is not enough to make up for that. You need multiple cards that are buffed by that. The King's Defender, even with a bunch of taunts, is still not a very good weapon. The only thing I could come up with was a weapon-based warrior that used a lot of taunts and actually buffed the weapon, because King's Defender on its own sucks, but a 3 durability, 3 attack weapon with upgrade and Captain Greenskin, that kind of works a little bit better. It's not good enough, though. It's not well enough fleshed out. So that's why I'm not putting out a lot of Hearthstone at the moment. I'm just not playing a lot of it. Currently, my game to play for fun is actually StarCraft, funnily enough, which is a game that for the longest time I couldn't play because of the neuropathy in my hands, but I'm playing it hard again now, and I'm really enjoying it, at least a lot more than I was previously. So that's why there aren't all that many Hearthstone videos. So just to wrap up the video with a couple of other things. Firstly, I'm going to be doing voice acting, in fact I've already done it, for Petroglyph's upcoming free-to-play game Battle Battalions, which is, I believe, a rebrand of a game they were making previously called Victory Command. The beta for that is currently running, and I believe some people have already done videos of the announcer, which is me. So basically I'm the one saying, hey, your units are under attack, and all that sort of thing. So I haven't done VO work for a game in quite some time, and obviously now I think there's a greater spotlight on ethical concerns when it comes to YouTubers than there used to be. And that is a good thing, so I'd like to address that issue. So, firstly, the payment for the voice acting was given to charity. I didn't take any money for it. The lump sum for the voice acting work was given to Charity Water. Secondly, when it comes to coverage of that game, obviously I think critical coverage is not really possible because I'm directly involved in it. That's one of those issues where I think you've got to recuse rather than just disclose because you are directly involved in some way with the game. That doesn't necessarily stop me streaming the game or anything along those lines, something that isn't critical coverage, but that would require full disclosure right off the bat. So I'm still umming and ahhing over what, if any, video coverage I would give to that game as a result of being directly involved in it. And it is also worth noting that I have yet to play the game, so I don't even have any opinion on the game right now to begin with. Eventually, no doubt, I'll get around to giving it a shot, but I tend to avoid most titles that are in beta or anything along those lines unless they're really big deals. So just bear that in mind. If you hear me say anything about Battle Battalions outside of the context of, hey, I did VO for this work, then feel free to take a very close look at the things that I say. And of course, I'm going to have to be very, very careful with how I approach that. The other thing is that I'm going to BlizzCon. I'm going to be working with a company there to do some Hearthstone stuff. I'll tell you a little bit more about it once everything has been set in stone. But I will be at BlizzCon. For the most part, outside of that, it's just going to be to hang around with friends and have a little bit of fun because I don't generally get the opportunity to do that. Plus, watch some StarCraft, since WCS will be there this year. Of course, if any of you are going to BlizzCon and I am not at a desk on a headset, then feel free to come up and say hi. We never object to that. Unless, of course, I'm sitting on the floor eating in between appointments. We had to make a bit of an unwritten rule that, no, we don't talk to people while we're eating, because it was the only time we used to get to ourselves when we were doing things like PAX and E3. Since I've been doing less of that lately, that's not really been so much of a factor, but yeah, we have no problems talking to viewers. By all means, do come up and say hi if you see us hanging around at BlizzCon. I think that pretty much covers it. That seems to be everything that's going on at the moment, so thanks very much for watching, folks. I will be flying back Friday, so don't really expect videos to kick back into gear until the end of the weekend. I'll see what I can do. I'm going to try and play some stuff while I'm away. People keep telling me, you've got to play the Undertale. You've got to play the damn Undertale. So maybe I do that while I'm away in LA and I just play it on my laptop or something like that. Maybe give that a shot, but yeah, don't expect any more videos until after that. I'm going to be going to work on these 15 minutes of game videos right now that should hopefully run Monday to Friday, assuming that I'm able to get them all done today. And then we will return to regular broadcasting after the weekend of the 10th of October. My name's been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Justice has come.
Upgrade complete. My life for hire. We cannot hold. You have not enough minerals. Mineral field depleted. You have not enough minerals. My life for hire. I return to serve. You have not enough minerals. You must place that in the power field. Our duty is unending.
Inala Atuna.
Mineral field depleted. This upgrade complete. Mineral field depleted. A Templar. You have not enough life depleted. We shall serve forever. You have not enough life for hire. We cannot hold. Mineral field depleted.
Psi web established. Kinala Atum.
I return to serve. My meditation